For eons, the galaxy had operated under one unspoken rule: never wake the humans. This rule was not written in any official treaty or law, but it was understood by every advanced civilization that had ever encountered Earth. The humans, once a thriving and ambitious species, had been put into a deep, artificial sleep millennia ago. The reason for this was simple: they were too dangerous. Their capacity for violence, their relentless drive for survival, and their ability to adapt to any situation made them a threat to the entire galaxy. So, the decision was made to put them to sleep, to let their planet become a quiet, forgotten corner of the universe. But rules are made to be broken, and one day, someone woke the humans. It began with a scientific expedition. The Krylos, a curious and technologically advanced species, had discovered Earth during a routine survey of uninhabited planets. They found the planet shrouded in a strange energy field, its surface dotted with massive structures that hummed with power. The Krylos scientists were fascinated. They had heard rumors of the humans, of course, but they had always dismissed them as myths. Now, standing on the surface of Earth, they couldn't resist the temptation to investigate further. The Krylos team spent months studying the energy field and the structures. They discovered that the field was a stasis generator, designed to keep the entire human population in a state of suspended animation. The structures, they realized, were cryo chambers, each containing thousands of humans. The Krylos were amazed by the technology, which was far beyond anything they had ever seen. But their curiosity soon turned to recklessness. They decided to deactivate the stasis field, just to see what would happen. The moment the field was shut down, the humans began to wake. At first, it was slow, a few individuals here and there, confused and disoriented, but as the hours passed, more and more humans emerged from their cryo chambers. The Krylos watched in awe as the humans began to rebuild their society with astonishing speed. Within days, the once silent cities were bustling with activity. The humans were resourceful, using whatever they could find to create tools, weapons, and shelters. The Krylos, still observing from a distance, began to feel uneasy. They had expected the humans to be primitive, but instead, they were witnessing the birth of a civilization that was already far more advanced than their own. The Krylos decided to make contact. They sent a small delegation to the surface, hoping to establish peaceful relations. But the humans were not interested in peace. They saw the Krylos as invaders, as a threat to their newfound freedom. The delegation was met with hostility, and within hours, the situation escalated into violence. The humans, armed with makeshift weapons and driven by a fierce determination to protect their home, overwhelmed the Krylos. The delegation was forced to retreat, leaving behind several of their members as prisoners. The Krylos leaders were horrified. They had never encountered a species so aggressive, so relentless. They tried to negotiate, sending messages of peace and offering to share their technology, but the humans were not interested. They had been asleep for thousands of years, and they were not about to let anyone take their planet from them again. The Krylos, realizing their mistake, decided to cut their losses and leave Earth. But it was too late. The humans had already begun to reverse engineer the Krylos technology, and they were building ships of their own. Within months, the humans had launched their first interstellar fleet. They were no longer content to stay on Earth. They wanted to explore the galaxy, to find out who had put them to sleep and why. The Krylos, now terrified of what they had unleashed, tried to warn the other civilizations, but it was no use. The humans were coming, and there was no stopping them. The first human fleet arrived at a Krylos colony, and the results were devastating. The humans fought with a ferocity that the Krylos had never seen before. They used tactics that were brutal and efficient, targeting key infrastructure and crippling the colony's defenses. The Krylos, despite their advanced technology, were no match for the humans. The colony fell within days, and the humans moved on to the next target. The galaxy watched in horror as the humans swept through the stars, leaving destruction in their wake. The other civilizations tried to form alliances, to unite against the common threat. But the humans were always one step ahead. They adapted to every strategy, every weapon, every defense. They were unstoppable. In the end, the galaxy had no choice but to surrender. The humans, now the dominant power in the universe, imposed their own rules. They demanded answers, and they got them. The civilizations that had put them to sleep were forced to admit their mistake, to acknowledge that they had underestimated the humans. The humans, for their part, were not interested in revenge. They simply wanted to ensure that no one would ever try to control them again. The galaxy learned a hard lesson that day. The one rule of the universe, never wake the humans, had been broken, and the consequences were catastrophic. The humans, once seen as a primitive and dangerous species, had proven that they were far more than that. They were survivors, fighters, and pioneers, and as they looked out at the stars, they knew that their future was limitless. The galaxy would never forget the day they woke the humans, and neither would the humans themselves. They had been asleep for thousands of years, but now they were awake, and they were ready to claim their place in the universe. The universe was old. Civilizations had risen and fallen. Empires had stretched across galaxies only to crumble into dust, and countless species had fought for dominance, believing themselves to be the pinnacle of existence. But there was one unspoken law that bound them all, a rule so deeply ingrained in the fabric of interstellar society that even the most war-hungry species obeyed it without question. Never wake the humans. No one knew exactly how the rule had come to be. There were whispers, stories passed down over millennia, fragments of data scattered through the archives of long-dead races. Some said the humans had been gods of war, that they had burned entire star systems to ash in battles long forgotten. Others claimed they had been explorers, venturing too far, too fast, until something terrible, forced them into slumber. What was clear, however, was that at the edge of the galaxy, in a desolate sector devoid of life, the humans slept in their great machines, their cities silent, their weapons cold. And they had been left alone. For eons, the rule held, until one species, arrogant and desperate, broke it. The Ketheri were a young race, ambitious and reckless. They had risen quickly, faster than most, expanding beyond their means, waging wars they could not win. Their empire was crumbling under the weight of its own hunger, and they were running out of options. Then they found the human world. A barren planet, its surface scarred by time. But beneath it, beneath the layers of dust and forgotten history, lay the machines. They were colossal structures, buried deep, humming with a power the Ketheri could not understand. Sensors detected energy readings unlike anything in known space. The Ketheri thought they had found salvation, an ancient power they could harness, a weapon that could turn the tide of their fading empire. So they dug. The excavation took years. Machines were torn apart, studied, repurposed. The more they uncovered, the more they realized they were standing on something beyond comprehension. The technology was not just advanced, it was alive, pulsing, waiting, and at the very heart of it all, beneath layers of interlocking steel and forgotten systems, they found them. The humans. Not dead, but sleeping, rows upon rows, encased in their pods, perfectly preserved. Their bodies were strange, too large, too dense, their very presence unsettling. There was something in the way they lay there, motionless yet terrifyingly present, as if even in sleep they were aware. The Ketheri hesitated. Perhaps they had dug too deep. Perhaps they had found something that should have remained buried. But it was too late. The first pulse came without warning, a ripple of energy, silent and unseen, spreading across the galaxy. The Ketheri barely had time to react before the machines awoke. Their control systems shut down, their ships went dark, and one by one, the pods began to open. The first human to wake did not scream. It did not stumble or panic. It simply opened its eyes, and everything changed. The Cathari soldiers stationed near the pods collapsed where they stood, their bodies seizing, their minds unable to process what they were seeing. The remaining ones tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The machines, the same machines they had spent years dismantling, reactivated. Systems long thought dead came online. Across the galaxy, ancient satellites whispered to one another. Something old and forgotten was stirring. The humans were awake. The first ships arrived within hours. Not Cathari ships. Not ships from any known civilization, but human vessels, black as the void, moving with a precision that defied physics. They did not communicate. They did not warn. They simply arrived. And then the slaughter began. The Cathari homeworld was the first to fall. It was not destroyed, it was erased. No weapons were fired. No armies landed. The planet simply ceased to be, wiped from existence as if it had never been. The rest of the Cathari colonies followed, one by one, their worlds vanishing into silent, empty voids. The galaxy watched in horror. There was no war, no negotiations. The humans did not explain. They did not speak. They simply removed. The rule had been broken. The punishment was absolute. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. The humans did not expand. They did not conquer. They did not claim territory. They returned to their slumber, their machines powering down, their ships disappearing into the darkness. The message was clear. Do not wake the humans. The rule was rewritten in blood and silence. The Cathari no longer existed, wiped from history as if they had never been. The other races, those who had watched and done nothing, reinforced the old laws. The human world was sealed, its coordinates erased from every archive. The memory of what had happened became legend once more, whispered in fear, never spoken aloud. The universe moved on. Civilizations rose and fell, but the rule remained. No one dared to approach that sector again. No one questioned why the humans slept, or what they dreamed of. No one wondered what would happen if they woke again. Because now, they knew. For eons, the galaxy had operated under one unspoken rule: never wake the humans. This rule was not written in any official codex or treaty, but it was understood by every advanced civilization that had ever encountered Earth. The humans were a relic of a bygone era, a species that had once been the dominant force in the galaxy, but their reign had ended in catastrophe, and the galaxy had agreed to let them sleep. Earth was quarantined, its people left in stasis, their cities preserved under a dome of energy. The galaxy moved on, and the humans became a myth, a cautionary tale whispered in the halls of power. But myths have a way of being forgotten, and rules have a way of being broken. The Zorathians were the ones who broke the rule, a young and ambitious species. They had risen to power in the absence of the humans. They had heard the stories, of course, but they dismissed them as exaggerations. To the Zorathians, the humans were nothing more than a primitive species, their technology outdated and their civilization long dead. They saw Earth as a treasure trove of resources, a planet ripe for the taking. Ignoring the warnings of the older civilizations, they sent a fleet to Earth, determined to strip it of its riches. The Zorathian fleet arrived in orbit around Earth, their ships gleaming in the light of the sun. They scanned the planet, marveling at the ancient cities preserved under the energy dome. They saw no signs of life, no movement, no threat. Confident in their superiority, they began to dismantle the dome, their machines cutting through the energy field like a knife through butter. As the dome fell, the stasis fields that had kept the humans in suspended animation began to fail. One by one, the humans awoke. At first, the Zorathians paid little attention to the humans. They were small, weak, and disoriented, stumbling out of their stasis pods like children waking from a long sleep. The Zorathians assumed they posed no threat. But they were wrong. The humans were not the primitive species the Zorathians had expected. They were the remnants of a civilization that had once ruled the galaxy, a civilization that had been forced into stasis not because of weakness, but because of their overwhelming power. The humans quickly realized what had happened. They saw the Zorathian ships in orbit, their machines tearing apart the energy dome. They saw the invaders, their arrogance and ignorance, and they remembered. They remembered the wars, the battles, the victories. They remembered the technology they had once wielded, the weapons that had made them the most feared species in the galaxy, and they remembered why they had been put to sleep. The humans moved quickly. They reactivated their ancient factories, their forges, their laboratories. They rebuilt their weapons, their ships, their armies. The Zorathians, still focused on stripping the planet of its resources, did not notice the activity on the surface. By the time they realized what was happening, it was too late. The humans launched their first attack, a barrage of energy weapons that tore through the Zorathian fleet like paper. The invaders were caught completely off guard, their ships destroyed before they could even raise their shields. The Zorathians panicked. They called for reinforcements, but it was no use. The humans were too fast, too powerful. They had been sleeping for millennia, but their instincts were still sharp, their skills still honed. They fought with a ferocity that shocked the Zorathians, their weapons cutting through the enemy ships with ease. The Zorathians tried to retreat, but the humans pursued them, their ships faster and more maneuverable. One by one, the Zorathian ships were destroyed, until only a handful remained. The survivors fled back to their homeworld, their tails between their legs. They told their leaders what had happened, but it was too late. The humans were coming. They had awakened, and they were angry. The Zorathians tried to prepare for the inevitable invasion, but they knew it was hopeless. The humans were a force of nature, a storm that could not be stopped. When the humans arrived, they did not come as conquerors. They came as avengers. Their ships descended on the Zorathian homeworld, their weapons blazing. The Zorathians fought back, but it was no use. Their technology was no match for the humans' ancient weapons, their armies no match for the humans' skill and determination. The battle was short and brutal, the Zorathian defenses crumbling under the onslaught. By the time the dust settled, the Zorathian civilization was no more. The humans did not stop there. They moved through the galaxy, reclaiming their former territories, their former glory. The other civilizations watched in awe and fear, remembering the stories they had been told. The humans were not a myth. They were real, and they were more powerful than anyone had imagined. The galaxy trembled as the humans advanced, their ships unstoppable, their weapons unmatched. But the humans were not the same as they had been before. They had learned from their mistakes, from the wars that had forced them into stasis. They did not seek to conquer the galaxy, to dominate it as they had before. Instead, they sought to protect it, to ensure that no species would ever make the same mistakes they had. They became the guardians of the galaxy, the enforcers of peace. The rule that had once been whispered in the halls of power became a law, written in the stars: never wake the humans. And so the galaxy learned its lesson. The humans were not to be trifled with, not to be underestimated. They were a force to be reckoned with, a reminder of the power and danger of unchecked ambition. The galaxy moved on, but it did not forget. The humans were awake, and they were watching, and woe to anyone who dared to break the rule again. The galaxy had operated under one unspoken rule: never wake the humans. It was a rule passed down through generations of interstellar civilizations, a warning etched into the histories of countless species. The humans, a species from a small blue planet called Earth, had been dormant for millennia. Their planet had been quarantined, their star system marked as forbidden territory. The reason was simple: humans were dangerous. Not because of their technology or their numbers, but because of their nature. They were unpredictable, relentless. and, when provoked, unstoppable. The galaxy had learned this the hard way, and so the rule was born. But rules, no matter how sacred, are sometimes broken, and when they are, the consequences are catastrophic. The story of how the humans were awakened began with the Zynari, a young and ambitious species that had recently achieved interstellar travel. The Zynari were explorers, driven by curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. They had heard the stories about Earth, about the humans, but they dismissed them as myths. To the Zynari, the idea of an entire species being quarantined was absurd. They believed the rule was nothing more than superstition, a relic of a bygone era. And so, against the warnings of the elder races, they decided to investigate. The Zynari arrived in the Sol system with a fleet of sleek, silver ships. They approached Earth cautiously, scanning the planet for signs of life. What they found shocked them. The planet was teeming with life, but the humans were nowhere to be found. Instead, they discovered vast underground cities, filled with millions of humans in suspended animation. The Zynari were fascinated. They had never seen anything like it. Ignoring the warnings of their advisors, they decided to wake the humans. The process was slow and methodical. The Zynari studied the humans' technology, learning how to safely revive them. They started with a small group, just a few hundred individuals. At first, everything seemed fine. The humans were confused but cooperative. They answered the Zynari's questions, sharing their history and culture. The Zynari were thrilled. They believed they had made a groundbreaking discovery, one that would elevate their status in the galaxy. But they were wrong. The humans were not what they seemed. The Zynari had assumed that the humans had gone into hibernation voluntarily, that they had chosen to sleep until the galaxy was ready for them. But the truth was far darker. The humans had not gone to sleep, they had been put to sleep. Long ago, during a time of great turmoil, the humans had become a threat to the entire galaxy. They had waged wars on a scale that defied comprehension, their weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. In the end, the elder races had no choice but to intervene. They had forced the humans into hibernation, sealing them away in their underground cities. It was not a punishment but a necessity. The galaxy could not survive another human war. The Zynari, unaware of this history, continued to wake more humans. They believed they were doing the right thing, that they were giving the humans a second chance. But as more humans awoke, the situation began to spiral out of control. The humans, once peaceful and cooperative, became increasingly aggressive. They demanded answers, and when the Zynari could not provide them, they turned violent. The Zynari tried to reason with the humans, but it was no use. The humans were no longer interested in diplomacy. They wanted freedom, and they were willing to fight for it. The first sign of trouble came when the humans seized control of one of the Zynari ships. Using their knowledge of the Zynari's technology, they disabled the ship's systems and took the crew hostage. The Zynari, panicked, tried to retake the ship, but the humans were too clever. They had anticipated the Zynari's every move, countering their strategies with ease. Within hours, the ship was under human control. The Zynari, realizing their mistake, tried to flee, but it was too late. The humans had already begun to spread. The situation escalated quickly. The humans, now fully awake and aware of their situation, began to organize. They used the Zynari's technology to revive more of their kind, spreading across the planet like a virus. The Zynari, outnumbered and outmatched, tried to contain the outbreak, but it was no use. The humans were too resourceful, too determined. They broke through every barrier, overcame every obstacle. Within days, Earth was under human control. The Zynari, desperate, called for help. They reached out to the elder races, begging for assistance, but the elder races refused. They had warned the Zynari, and now they would suffer the consequences. The Zynari were on their own. The humans, now in control of Earth, turned their attention to the stars. They had been asleep for millennia. But their instincts had not faded. They were warriors, conquerors, and they would not be contained. Using the Zynari's technology, they began to build ships, preparing to leave Earth and reclaim their place in the galaxy. The Zynari, realizing the gravity of their mistake, tried to stop them, but it was no use. The humans were unstoppable. The final battle took place in orbit around Earth. The Zynari, desperate to prevent the humans from leaving, launched a full-scale assault. But the humans were ready. They had spent centuries honing their skills, perfecting their strategies. The battle was short and brutal. The Zynari fleet was decimated, their ships reduced to scrap metal. The humans, victorious, turned their attention to the stars. The galaxy watched in horror as the humans began to spread. They were no longer the primitive species they had once been. They were a force to be reckoned with, a reminder of why the rule had been created in the first place. The elder races, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to contain the humans, but it was no use. The humans were too powerful, too determined. They would not be stopped. In the end, the galaxy learned a hard lesson. The rule had been created for a reason, and breaking it had consequences. The humans, once dormant, were now awake, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Zynari, their curiosity and ambition their downfall, were left to pick up the pieces. They had broken the one rule of the universe, and now they would live with the consequences. The humans, for their part, had no regrets. They had been asleep for too long, and now they were ready to reclaim their place in the galaxy. They were no longer the primitive species they had once been. They were warriors, conquerors, and they would not be contained. The galaxy had tried to keep them asleep, but now they were awake, and they would not be stopped. The one rule of the universe had been broken, and the consequences would be felt for generations to come.